Washington, D.C., November 2024. The transition is underway. Whispers of a new administration, a new vision for America's military fill the corridors of power. But these are not just whispers of policy shifts. They are seismic tremors, promising a fundamental reshaping of the Pentagon itself. At the center of the storm is a name synonymous with a radical, MAGA-leaned overhaul: Pete Hegseth. His potential appointment as Secretary of Defense has sent shockwaves through the establishment. This isn't about adjusting budgets or tweaking procurement. This is about a Pentagon purge. It's a term now echoing from think tanks to the forward-deployed decks of aircraft carriers. The objective, as outlined in reports and echoed by supporters, is simple and brutal: dismantle the woke military leadership and replace it with a warrior class loyal not to institutional norms, but to a nationalist agenda. The primary target: the United States Navy. The announcement, when it comes, is expected to be swift. A list, already drafted, containing the names of admirals and senior captains slated for forced retirement. This isn't a reform. It's a decapitation strike on the Navy's command structure. The justification, publicly stated, will be about restoring warfighting focus, cutting bureaucratic bloat, and eliminating progressive policies deemed a distraction from lethal readiness. Hegseth, or a figure like him, will likely quote declining recruitment numbers and readiness reports, framing the purge as a necessary, patriotic corrective. But the real reason cuts deeper. It's about control. A Hegseth-led Pentagon would view the current Navy leadership products of a post-Cold War era focused on international cooperation, rules-based order, and diverse inclusion as an obstacle to a more aggressive, unilateralist foreign policy. The purge is the tool to remove that obstacle, ensuring the military instrument will respond without question when the call comes. At risk is not just the careers of seasoned officers, but the very soul of the U.S. Navy and America's ability to project power across the globe. To understand this crisis, we have to look back. This moment didn't emerge from a vacuum. For years, a narrative has been building within conservative circles. It's amplified on cable news and social media that America's military has gone soft. It's infected by woke ideology. The roots of this argument trace back to the repeal of Don't Ask, Don't Tell, the integration of women into combat roles, and recent diversity, equity, and inclusion initiatives. These policies, framed by the Pentagon as essential for reflecting American society and strengthening the all-volunteer force, were reframed by critics as politically correct experiments that eroded warrior ethos. Reports like the 2023 National Defense Authorization Act, or NDAA, became battlegrounds, with clauses targeting everything from climate change initiatives to gender-affirming care. Each debate chipped away at the trust between civilian policymakers and the uniformed military. Simultaneously, the Navy was facing real-world challenges. The Fat Leonard scandal exposed a crisis of ethics in the 7th Fleet. The tragic collisions of the USS Fitzgerald and USS John S. McCain in 2017 revealed profound failures in basic seamanship and training, costing 17 sailors their lives. These incidents weren't about ideology. They were about a force stretched too thin, burdened by a relentless operational tempo and decaying equipment. But in the political arena, these distinct issues were conflated. The Navy's operational failures were linked, by critics, to its social policies. The argument became, admirals are more concerned with pronoun usage than with navigation, more focused on day than on defeating China. This narrative, while factually dubious, was politically potent. It created the justification for a purge presenting a radical housecleaning, not as an ideological power grab, but as a desperate measure to save a failing institution. Now, under a potential Hegseth Pentagon, that narrative becomes policy. So, what does this Pentagon purge actually look like? It's a strategic dismantling of the Navy's institutional memory and expertise. The initial wave would target the 3- and 4-star admirals, the very leaders who command fleets, oversee global logistics, and advise on nuclear strategy. These are officers with decades of experience. Men and women who have navigated complex geopolitical crises from the Strait of Hormuz to the Taiwan Strait. Their replacements would be handpicked based on perceived loyalty to the new administration's America First doctrine. The selection criteria would likely favor officers who have publicly disavowed woke policies or who have been passed over for promotion by the current establishment. This creates a dangerous feedback loop. Rising officers will quickly learn that the path to a flag rank is not through operational excellence or strategic acumen, but through political alignment. The institution will begin to self-censor. Independent military advice, a cornerstone of healthy civil-military relations, will wither. Imagine the scenario. China blockades a Taiwanese island. The new Chief of Naval Operations, appointed for his political loyalty, is in the White House Situation Room. Does he provide the president with a candid assessment of the risks, including the Navy's actual readiness levels and the high probability of escalation? Or does he provide the answer he knows the president wants to hear, that the U.S. Navy is ready for a fight, regardless of the facts on the ground? This purge extends beyond the Admiralty. It would cascade down through the ranks of captains and commanders, the leaders who command carrier strike groups, submarine squadrons, and special warfare units. These are the gatekeepers of naval culture. By replacing them, a Hegseth-led DOD could rapidly transform the character of the force. Training would be rescoped to focus almost exclusively on high-end combat, potentially at the expense of seamanship, safety, and ethical conduct. Recruitment messaging would shift, appealing to a narrower, more homogeneous demographic, potentially reversing decades of progress in building a diverse force. The strategic consequences are chilling. America's greatest asymmetric advantage over rivals like China and Russia isn't just technology. It's our network of alliances. That network is built on trust that the U.S. is a stable, predictable partner. A politically purged military, seen as an ideological instrument of a volatile administration, shatters that trust. How can Japan or Australia confidently integrate their naval strategies with a U.S. Navy whose senior leadership could be fired for disagreeing with the president? AUKUS, the Trilateral Security Pact designed to counter China, relies on the seamless transfer of highly sensitive nuclear submarine technology. Would a politically compromised Pentagon be trusted to safeguard such secrets? The answer is likely no. Allies will hedge. They will begin to develop security architectures that are less reliant on Washington, weakening the very alliances that form the bedrock of American global power. This is the deeper game. The purge isn't just about the Navy. It's about unshackling American power from the constraints of the international system it built. It's a precursor to a world where treaties are transactional, alliances are conditional, and the U.S. military acts not as a guarantor of global security, but as an enforcer for a narrow nationalist interest. The first shots of this transformation won't be fired in the South China Sea. They will be fired inside the Pentagon with signed letters of dismissal. And so, we return to the quiet corridors of the Pentagon on the eve of a historic rupture. The ousting of the Navy's leadership would not be a simple changing of the guard. It would be an amputation. The institutional knowledge, the decades of experience in high-stakes deterrence, the trust built with allies over generations, all of it severed. What rises in its place is an unknown. A Navy remade in a new image, led by commanders chosen for their allegiance over their abilities. A military that may talk tougher, but is brittle, isolated, and strategically adrift. In the short term, it might feel like a victory for those who demand a more aggressive posture. But the long-term cost is a hollowed-out force, a network of fractured alliances, and a far more dangerous world. The debate is framed as warfighting versus wokeness, but that is a false choice. The real conflict is between institutional stability and political volatility, between seasoned judgment and ideological fervor. This isn't a reform, it's a rout, self-inflicted wound that could cripple America's ability to navigate the turbulent waters of the 21st century. Because in this new era of great power competition, the ultimate test of a nation's strength isn't just the might of its fleet, but the wisdom of those who command it.